Hello and welcome to Mastering ASP.NET Ajax Library. This is Craig Shoemaker, and in this series I'm going to show you a number of the new features that are available with the latest release of ASP.NET Ajax. We'll start off by talking about the ScriptLoader and the implications that it has for loading your scripts and making it a lot easier to manage the dependencies and the order in which scripts are loaded onto your pages. We'll talk about the DataView Control, which is the client templates framework, and how you can bind up templates on the client side from data that serve either locally, web services, from ASP.NET MVC, WebForms, all over the place. The DataContext Control will show you how you can do client-side data access. Along with that, we'll go over the Observer framework, where you'll be able to see how you can set up a publisher-subscribe type of scenario all in JavaScript for your custom objects, whether they're standard objects or collections of objects. I'll show you how you can integrate in with the WCF Data Services and how these technologies, ASP.NET Ajax and the data services, are made to work very closely together and create a very small code base in order to do CRUD type operations on the client. All throughout the series, I'll show you how to use these techniques in standard HTML pages, as well as ASP.NET WebForms, and also how it works within ASP.NET MVC. Now, before we go directly into the code, let's start off with just a little bit of history. The origins of ASP.NET Ajax started off with ASP.NET 2.0. Now, if you remember at the time, ASP.NET 2.0 was a huge upgrade from ASP.NET 1.1. And along with that came a number of different features that were available. ASP.NET Ajax was released against the 2.0 framework, and it was heavily based on the features that were found in ASP.NET 2.0 and also heavily based on the page architecture. So some of the features that you had were the ability to call web services, this whole idea of page methods. You could put a script manager on the page, you could say enable page methods, and then you would have a proxy that was created from a server function up on the client, and then you could pass data back and forth that way. The update panel was a control that many developers really liked because it saved them from the work of having to write Ajax manually. It featured a number of different JavaScript enhancements. It brought in the idea of inheritance, interfaces, namespaces, and custom objects for data types, and really helped bring the type of programming model that server developers were used to up to the client. Also, you had the opportunity to work directly with the ASP.NET membership, and this would allow you to do logging in and logging out and doing profiles and basically working with some of the best features that came with ASP.NET 2.0. And finally, the Ajax Control Toolkit was an open source project that came alongside ASP.NET Ajax and basically built on top of the ASP.NET Ajax framework in order to provide rich controls for the client. Again, everything that was found at this time was really WebForms centric. Many of the controls were declared in ASPX and were server controls, and some of the controls were declared in the ASPX page, like the update panel, and it was still very much working within the paradigm of using WebForms. The ASP.NET Ajax Library is the next evolution in ASP.NET Ajax, and the name has been changed a little bit. And this is because the ASP.NET Ajax Library is now an open source project itself and is now developed and maintained in the CodePlex Foundation. So along with all the new features and enhancements, what that indicates is that now you or I could very easily become part of the development team for ASP.NET Ajax and add features and controls to the library. Some of the new features that are available that this series is about is the ScriptLoader. And the ScriptLoader is a control that will help you bring the scripts into your pages, and you don't have to worry about whether they're done in the right order or whether dependencies are loaded in for a particular script. You'll simply write a piece of code on the page, say that you require this on the page, and everything happens in the background. I'll show you how to use the ScriptLoader and also how to customize it for your own specific scripts. I'll show you how to use the Content Delivery Network, or the CDN. And this is a place where Microsoft has placed the scripts that you use up on a delivery network so that it basically gives you heightened performance capabilities, because these files are scattered on servers all throughout the world and you don't have to keep downloading them over and over again and sucking up bandwidth on your servers. So I'll show you how to integrate in with the CDN. Along with that, a big part of the Ajax library is the whole idea of the client templates, which is really boils down to the DataView Control. And if you're not familiar with client templates, if you can think of a server-side repeater where you have full control over the markup, and you basically take a set of data, when you iterate over that and format it and do whatever you want with it, But that's all done server side. This takes that type of functionality, moves it up to the client, and really gives you a great deal of flexibility in working with data sets that are coming back and forth through Ajax requests. There's a number of different ways that you can customize and work with the client templates, and so we'll be diving deep into the client templates. The library now features jQuery integration, and as you'll see, you can simply say that you want jQuery on a page and it will appear. There's a number of other ways in which the library works with jQuery. The syntax and the feel of jQuery has also been adopted by the approach of the Ajax library. So if you're used to working with jQuery, you will feel right at home working with the ASP.NET Ajax library. There's an observer framework that gives you a cross-browser way of handling publisher and subscriber type of model in dealing with your objects that are created custom for your application. I'll show you how to use the Ajax minifier in order to create, debug, and release versions of your files. And finally, the Ajax Control Toolkit is now integrated into ASP.NET Ajax Library. So when you download the ASP.NET Ajax Library, you're getting not only the entire Ajax library, but also a suite of controls that are available. Now, these controls are not covered in the series, but perhaps there'll be further series on Tekpub that will delve into them in depth. One final note before we hop into the code. This series deals with the beta release of the Ajax library. So if there's any further preview releases, or certainly the RTM release, you can expect some updates to the series to show you anything that's changed. To begin our discussion of the ScriptLoader, let's review how you would do things today, how it works when you're loading scripts manually. So here we are in Visual Studio 2008, and I chose Visual Studio 2008 only for the reason of right now IntelliSense. If you notice, we're using this .htm file, and really nothing is happening on the page that requires any sort of server processing or anything. All that's happening in these demos right now is just on the clients. But again, the IDE is nice when I'm typing HTML, so I'm using Visual Studio 2008. Now I'd like to create a sample page that basically proves that we're using ASP.NET Ajax as well as jQuery at the same time. So we'll display an image on the page and allow it to fade in. So let's set up the base HTML for our page. So I've added just a few things onto the page here. You'll notice first there's an image here, and we're just looking at the Tekpub logo, and we've given it an ID of logo. And we've started off by telling the style sheet to hide this from the page, and by the class here you can see that we've simply done display none. So initially when the page loads, this image will be hidden, but I'd like to show it to the user by fading it in. So the next step would be to add the script includes. So I've added two scripts to the page, the Microsoft Ajax script file, as well as jQuery version 1.3.2. And this is normally how you would go about things. I know I need Ajax first, and then I'll be using jQuery within the body of my method. And so I need to put these in this order and make sure that they're both loaded onto the page. So the next piece is to actually write the script in order to make it do something. So with the script that I've added here is we're using ASP.NET Ajax to tap into the onReady function. OnReady will function when the page has been loaded, the DOM has been loaded, and the page is ready for you to start interacting with it. We can be sure that when onReady fires, any one of our input controls, images, anything that's on the page are ready to be programmatically interacted with. So you'll notice here we're using the standard type of anonymous function that you might find in the jQuery type of syntax. So we do sys.onReady and then open up an anonymous function and close it down here. This is all ASP.NET Ajax. Then we'll use jQuery to run the fade-in function. And this is an animation effect found within jQuery in order to allow something to fade in. So we're using this $ selector here to say pound logo, which means find the element within the page that has the ID of logo, which we have right down here, and fade in, taking 3000 milliseconds to finish the animation. Let's run this in the browser and see how it looks. There we go. We have the Tekpub logo fading in on the page just as we'd expect. Now, some of the problems with this approach are, number one, we have to know the paths for all of these scripts. We also have to know what order that they need to be brought into the page on. And we have to keep that straight for every single page that we're building that uses scripts. The ASP.NET Ajax ScriptLoader has a better way for you. Now, the ScriptLoader is a new control found in the ASP.NET Ajax library that manages the scripts, how they're loaded in, and manages dependencies for you. So let's take our previous example and adjust it a little bit. Here, we return to the same page with the manual scripts being removed from the page. So the first thing that we want to do is begin by including a single script onto the page, and that's the start.js page. The job of start.js is to house the script loader. And so now what we can do is proceed to work with the page, and instead of explicitly saying which scripts we need working on this page, we can simply say which scripts we're going to use, basically declaratively by calling a method called require, and then those scripts will be loaded in the background for us. The script loader will figure out if there are any dependencies, and it doesn't matter as far as the path is concerned. It simply knows where to find them. So let's adjust the code on this page a little bit more in order to bring it back to what we were doing in the previous example. So if you'll notice, we have the same syntax that we had before, the sys.onReady, and then our function here to fade in the logo. But the only difference is that we have this sys.require statement. And if we come in and say sys.scripts.jQuery, all of this together by default is bringing in ASP.NET Ajax and then telling this page that we want to use jQuery as well. So now when we run the page in the browser, we should get exactly the same result. Now, just to be sure, let's open up the debugger and switch over to the profiler. We'll start profiling, and then I'll simply reload the page. Once I stop profiling and switch over to the call tree, you can see here that the ASP.NET Ajax framework, start.js is loaded in, as well as jQuery is loaded in. So it's given us exactly what we want. Now, the script loader is set up by default in order to pull jQuery from the content delivery network, but I'll show you in an upcoming segment of how to switch that. So if you're working, say, disconnected from the web, that you can make sure you keep everything routed back to your single machine.